Goal setting and the ability to create an actionable plan is the single most important element in your success. I've designed this latest version of my digital planner with that productivity and goal setting framework in mind. When we break it down, there's really two main components to your success. One, your ability to identify the right goals and objectives for your life, goals that are truly aligned to where you want to go and with what you want to accomplish. Number two, your ability to create a clear plan to execute on those goals and follow through on a plan day to day. So with that insight, I built everything you need to do this successfully in 2020 into my latest planners. So this first component of goal setting, the ability to really identify the right goals for your life, is something that I cover in the goal roadmap section included in my planners. And this is really a step-by-step system of templates and different prompts that I take you through to really clarify your focus, take control of your time, and then create and execute on the plan that you create. So if we dive into this a little bit deeper, let's start over here on the left under clarifying your focus. Now, the first thing you're going to do is reflect. You're going to reflect on some key areas of your life, and you're going to rate them and write some notes so that you can really become clear on how you feel about these key areas of your life, where you have opportunities to improve, and start to think about where you might want to focus for 2020. Then, jumping into actually creating your vision, you'll use what you reflected on, and you'll look through each of those 6 key areas, and you'll create a vision for your life. And you might create a few visions. One might be really far-reaching, 10 or 20 years down the line. And then you'll also create one that might be a little bit more near term, like what would you like these areas of your life to look like 1 year from now? And based on that, you'll start to get a feel for your top 3 areas that you should focus on. Now, we know that we can't focus on everything at once. So it's important for you to be able to pare down and figure out before you go into setting really detailed, specific goals, just at a high level, what are the main areas you want to focus on this year? Why might you focus on those? What would be your why behind them? What would be your motivation? And then in order to focus and move the dial in those areas, what are some specific goals or actions that you might take in that area? So again, this is more, big picture brainstorming, but it's helping you to go from just hey, maybe I'm not quite happy with where I'm at in my life, to here's my focused plan for where I want to go. So that covers clarifying your focus. Moving over to the right on this page, then you're really going to do the hard work to take control of your time. If you create a plan, but you don't have a way to execute it, you don't have the time allocated, you don't have the structure in your life, you'll fail to execute on the plan. And so this middle process is really about doing that. And so you'll start first with a time study, and you'll actually go through and keep a time log. We often overestimate or underestimate how we spend our time. And so really doing a time study for, a full week can help you gain focus and clarity on where you're spending your time. Now, this isn't something that you have to do right away, but I do strongly encourage you to come back to it sometime within the first month or so of using your planner, complete it, and you'll be amazed with how it allows you to really gain some insight that lets you pare things down or optimize your time. From your time study, then you'll look at that and how you spent your time for the week, and you'll capture some things that you realized maybe you can stop doing. Are you going to stop doing them altogether? Are you going to delegate them out? And what are some things that you might start doing? Now, this start doing list you'll build on as you set goals and as you clarify your focus, but you want to get a kind of a cohesive list of all of the things that you want to start doing in your life so that you can, 1, allocate the right time and slot them into your routines, and 2, so that you can also make sure you don't become overly ambitious and try to fit in too many new things at once. So the start doing list will allow you to systematically capture, here are the things I want to add into my life, and figure out how to add each of those in a way that is something that you can repeat and really keep going on over time. Now, routines are really kind of the cornerstone of you executing effectively in most areas of your life. And anything that is kind of a standard habit or practice will need to end up hinged into one of your standard routines. It's really hard to start doing something new. And so having a clear picture of what does it take you to get started in the morning? What does it take you to end your day? And what else might you be able to fit into those routines to make sure that they happen or they're executed on? So for example, if you want to start working out, the best thing you can do is to kind of sandwich it within a routine and give yourself some structure. And so this routines page will really allow you to figure out, what are my routines to date? How long do they take? And where might I be able to fit new habits into my day or my week? And now this final piece is really where it all comes together. Obviously, every week can be a little bit different, but filling out a quick sample ideal week, your weekly schedule, what it would look like on a fairly standard week for you, where things go according to plan. This is where you can figure out, hey, are all the things that I'm planning really sustainable? Are they all things that actually fit in together? It's great to have really high aspirations, but if it doesn't all fit, and if it doesn't all fit within the time that you have, you'll likely set yourself up for failure. So this weekly schedule really helps you become realistic about the time you have and where you're spending it. Now, all of these things that I've showed you in these first 2 steps, I highly encourage you to go through them fairly quickly when you start in your planner, but I also encourage you to revisit them time and time again. So if I look at the time study, for example, I'm going to click this button here at the bottom that says complete your time study. Here I am on the time study page. Now, an important thing to remember is this is just a page within my planner that I can choose to duplicate as many times as I wish. So I mentioned that the vision is a page that I recommend you complete for maybe 1 year, 10 years, 20 years. You can duplicate any of these pages. They're within your planner, and you can come back and edit them at any time. So just having these pages here makes them really accessible, and how often you choose to kind of redo some of these exercises or reuse them is totally up to you, because they're within your planner and completely at your disposal. So now that we've covered those first 2 phases, let's jump over to the right of the page here where we see create and execute your plan. Now, this is really where you turn that vision into a specific plan, and you start aligning actions, and you start managing those actions week to week and day to day. This is really where the rubber hits the road and the action happens. So those first 2 phases are super important to set you up for success, but this is really where you start to realize your success. Clicking on set your goals is going to take you out to that dedicated goal setting section. I've mentioned before that this is a separate section to make it super easy for you to jump in and refer back to your goals at any time. Since, like I mentioned, this is really where the action happens, and this is the space that you'll want to revisit. Now, on this goal setting page, you have space to set 12 high-level goals throughout the year. Each of these goal boxes links to a dedicated goal planning page, allowing you to clarify your goal and set some of your progress goals within it. So if we look at this number of 12, the first thing that I'll say is you really don't want to set more than 3 goals max at a time. In some cases, you might only be working on 1 goal at a time. But at a high level, if you set more than 3 goals, you're likely going to be overwhelmed with all of the new things that you're trying to execute on in your life. You also want to think in terms of 90-day execution windows. So most goals you set should be things that you can plan to execute in about 90 days. Now, there might be some exceptions to that. Like in my example of running a half marathon, I'm going to spend a little longer than 90 days actually training. But the execution of that is pretty simple. I just set up everything for my training, and I'm just going to be executing on training for a couple months longer. But if you think about another example, like the initial launch of a new business, I would want to split that up into things that I can execute on in 90 days. Perhaps the first 90 days is developing my business model and some of the technology framework for it. And then perhaps the next 90 days is the launch of the business. But setting a goal that's too high level, that say stretches throughout the entire year, won't give you enough time to really make sure that you're on track with executing on it, and it won't give you the structure that allows you to kind of reorient your focus as needed. So I do suggest always making sure that you set goals for the most part that can be executed in 90 days. So like I mentioned, you might set only 3 at once, and as you go, you can cross them off, check them off, and you can continue to set new goals throughout the year. So let's talk about setting a goal. I'm here on the sample goal that I've made in this planner, and my goal is by the end of May 2020, I will complete a competitive half marathon. And so what I'm really doing here first in this goal box is setting something that's specific and actionable so I can easily look at that target date and gauge whether I have succeeded. Always make sure that your goals are specific and measurable enough to be able to say yes or no, I succeeded at this. So we have our high level goal here, but that's really too large to be able to execute on, to really know where to start, especially in the moment, day to day, to understand, okay, how can I really move the dial on this? So the idea is right now in this planning period, you really want to start to get specific and break it down into smaller pieces that feel more actionable. That's going to really allow you to execute on this day to day. So there are 2 types of smaller goals that every large high-level goal will split into. The first are progress goals. Now think of these more so as actions, milestones that you need to complete on the way to your larger goal. They're things that usually won't take more than a couple weeks to complete, start to finish, and they're things that you can set a specific target date on. So you can see some of these things are pick a training plan. There might be a few different actions, a few different conversations I have to have that goes into picking a training plan, but that's something specific that I can set a time-bound date on, that I can start and I can finish. And you can see I have, choose a race and complete registration, join a running club, and complete a 5K race. They feel like very tangible, next step action item types of things. So those are my progress goals. If I move down below though, my habit goals, these are the things that I have to complete on a consistent basis. These are kind of like life change sort of things that I have to be able to maintain over time. So when you think about all that work that we did on our routines and our habits, this is really where habit goals fit in. So when you set a habit goal, one of my main suggestions to you is to make sure that you record those things that have to happen as habits and then diligently go back to your routines and your weekly schedule and make sure that you've set yourself up for success by making sure that those morning runs fit in somewhere very specific to your routines and that you have the time to complete them. That extra planning specifically around the habits is going to become so crucial. And then the final thing here on the right side of the page, you can see setting yourself up for success. We capture, is there any external support that you'll need to pursue this goal? If you're really serious about it, you want to make sure that you have that external support in place as you get started. Also, how will you hold yourself accountable to achieving this goal? Getting external support and accountability is often a great way to do this. And then third, when you achieve this goal, how will you celebrate? And in that space, you can also capture some of the things that are inspiring you to chase this goal. What will it feel like? Where will it get you in your life? Really using these prompts are going to help you get in the right mindset and make sure you have the right focus as you start on your goal. So now you've set a really strong goal that you're excited about achieving. Let's talk about execution. Now, the first piece around your habits, I've mentioned already. You need to make sure that your habits are slotted into your routines and that you have the right level of accountability to execute on them. Moving forward, though, let's talk about what you'll do with these progress goals. So this page here shows some tips and shows the flow that I'm going to walk you through right now. But essentially what happens is you'll take a progress goal from your goal page, and that progress goal will show up in your weekly planning. You'll incorporate it when you plan for your week as one of the main areas of focus that you have for your week. You'll notice in your weekly planning that you have a space for 3 progress goals. This speaks to my recommendation around sticking with no more than 3 goals at once. So you can have 3 main focuses for your week that stretch across your 3 main goals, or if you've chosen to kind of remain singularly focused on a single goal, you can execute more quickly on that by executing on a few of the progress goals in one week. So our first step here then will be to take our progress goal. Let's jump back into our half marathon example. I'm going to take my progress goal here. Now you could rewrite it, but for simplicity, I'm just gonna lasso it, tap and hold, and copy. And I know that this goal I want to execute on here starting in this first week. I want to give myself enough space here to execute on this effectively. So I'm going to jump over then. I'm actually going to jump into week 2 here. And I'm going to jump into that spread by tapping on the shaded area in the right margin of my month. And this is where I would complete, my reflection and last week's accomplishments. But just to jump in here, I'm going to paste in that progress goal. And, maybe here in the context of this page, I want to clarify that a little bit. And then from here, now I've grabbed that progress goal, right? Like that was when I really kind of broke down my large goal into a few main steps. But now I'm going to get even more detailed. That daily execution is where it can become really challenging. You need a lot of clarity day to day to be able to push through the stresses of daily life and continue to push forward on executing in your goals. So that's why this planning time is so important. It's your one time of the week to really think strategically and create a foolproof action plan that allows you to just grab tasks day to day and execute on them and move forward. So I'm just going to set a few actions right now. So we now have this progress goal that fits under our high-level goal, and we have it broken down for this week into a set of specific actions. Now, how you manage those actions throughout the week is completely up to you. I'll show you the way that I've found that works well for me though. I typically grab all of these actions here. Now I'm at the beginning of the week and I'm planning. And what I know is that, each day of the week, different things might come up. Things might become unpredictable. But really, I know that one of my main goals for the week is to complete the actions that I've outlined here. So right away at the beginning of the week, what I'll do is I'll tap back into my weekly view, and starting here on Monday, I'm going to jump into my daily plan. What I'll do here in the beginning of the week, I'll actually just paste in my top priorities for each day of the week, just so that they're there and they're top of mind for me right away in the morning. So in this case, I'm actually just going to phase each of these out for each day of the week. So I'm going to add my research training plans there on the first day, on the 6th. I'm going to swipe over. I'm going to add consulting my local running group on the 7th. And continuing through adding these in. And you can see this is just taking up one of my priorities for each day. So if I have another goal, I might add those in. I also actually like to go into the week without having every priority or a full task list set for every day. I like to go into my week with some space. But you can see right here in that planning time, I was able to copy, paste that in, and I'm able to quickly then the morning of the 6th jump in and say, oh, look, I have to research training plans. And so as I'm kind of time blocking out my day that morning, I can pick a certain slot of the day and I can just block it out for my research. And this is how I make sure that things like this happen in my day, because then, all this other space in my day will undoubtedly be filled with other things. But right away in the morning, I knew that this was a priority for me and I was able to slot that in my schedule. So that's really the full process that I use to manage my goals into actions. And you can see how that really kind of translates that down to the details of executing day to day. And through some trial and error, this is what I found has really worked well for me and helped me to move the dial day to day and hold myself accountable for prioritizing my goals every day.